KG2, I have, yeah.
Right? This is that big one, man.
It lasted a little more than 30 seconds. It will remain etched in our minds forever. On January 17th, 1994, at 4:31 a.m., Southern California was rudely awakened by a violent and thunderous temblor, measuring 6.7 on the Richter scale. The quake centered in the San Fernando Valley community of Northridge, severed gas lines, toppled homes and apartments, destroyed shops and businesses, and collapsed several major freeways throughout the Southern California region. The entire nation watched transfixed as early morning brought the first glimpse of the tragic aftermath of destruction and human suffering. Thousands of residents were left homeless, while scores of cities suffered through days without water, power, and basic transportation. California's main artery, Interstate 5, had collapsed at the 14 freeway interchange, taking the life of one LAPD officer with it, and leaving the communities of the Santa Clarita Valley literally cut off from the rest of Los Angeles. Fortunately for the city of Santa Clarita and its population of over 150,000, years of advanced planning and innumerable hours of training paid off incredibly well.
We did a lot of training, information dissemination to the public about being prepared for 72 hours and be self-sustaining while government tends to gear up to be responsive. That was very helpful. I think the community was able to work with us, and it proved to be very successful.
Within 20 minutes of the earthquake, municipal employees began to report to City Hall. By 5:35 a.m., City Hall had been determined to be damaged but habitable, and the Emergency Operations Center, or EOC, was opened. The initial communications to the county were made by the Emergency Communications Services, an amateur radio group. Essential phone lines and cellular phones worked only sporadically. Portable generators were the only power available for the EOC lighting, the Centrex phone system, and the radio batteries. City staff and emergency personnel responded to their pre-assigned roles as identified in the emergency plan. It was the responsibility of many of these personnel to investigate the status of the city.
I think the success of the plan was in the preparation, in the staff knowing what to do, and in the staff being flexible, being willing to do whatever was needed, and really caring about making a difference and finding the solutions to everyone's problems.
It quickly became clear that most of the city was without power or water, and that there were many fires and gas leaks throughout the community. By daybreak, all critical facilities had been inspected and their conditions logged. There were no building collapses. Henry Mayo Newhall Memorial Hospital was operational, but without water, as were most of the homeowners and businesses of the valley bordering Interstate 5. Isolation became a reality as the number of destroyed bridges and roadways were accounted for. Interstate 5 and Highway 14, virtually the only north and south links to the Santa Clarita Valley, were closed.
KBET became the official disaster radio station. KBET did a remarkable job. They became the psychological crux of the whole community. They became the central point of the community and provided that vital information that really did make a difference to everyone.
We had to support our disaster operations as well as bringing in the resources that we needed for the population here, water and food and shelter.
Many structures would eventually be red tagged as uninhabitable by building inspectors. As January 17th progressed, hundreds of residents, frightened to enter their homes and cut off from travel, would begin to pour into public parks. Additionally, hundreds of elderly residents living in group facilities had to be transported to safe housing, along with their medicines, oxygen tanks, and special needs. So began the city's immediate activation of the Care and Shelter Annex of the disaster plan. By nightfall on January 17th, over 1,000 people were in the care of the American Red Cross and the city of Santa Clarita. The first delivery of bottled water from the outside would arrive the following day, January 18th. Before the emergency was over, approximately 1.7 million gallons would be distributed by the city.
There were two principal aspects of that. From the distribution site at College of the Canyons, we would put it on flatbed trucks and go out to the various sites where it would be put in people's cars and unload it off of these large trucks with our hand crews, the inmate crews. Then the California Conservation Corps would then take the individual bottles or boxes and put them in the trunks of the cars of the people who drove by. It was a very efficient operation.
As major aftershocks to the 6.7 quake occurred, engineers and building inspectors re-examined the City Hall structure. A decision was made to move the EOC out of the City Hall building and into the adjacent parking lot. The move had to occur with no disruption of services or coordination of the emergency operations. The EOC and city operations continue to function out of tents and trailers in the parking lot until February 1st, 1994, when city staff moved to a temporary City Hall to resume municipal operations. Eventually, it would be determined that City Hall had suffered major damage to the steel moment frame, with the repair costs in excess of $4.5 million.
One thing that we did learn following the Northridge earthquake was that earthquakes really are survivable. With lots of planning and preparedness, which are simple steps that can be taken ahead of time, it truly does make a difference. Another thing that makes a difference is the building codes. Our building codes in Southern California are a lot stronger than other places so that we can survive earthquakes.
By midnight on January 17th, only 19 hours from the initial enormous quake, power had been restored to all but 1,400 homes in the community. The repowering of the system was coordinated in the Emergency Operations Center by Southern California Edison and Los Angeles County Fire and Sheriff's personnel.
I think as a city, we are a lot better prepared to handle any kind of a disaster operation here, whether it be an earthquake or a fire or a flood or whatever it happens to be.
Clearly, the years of planning and preparation for the disaster not only saved lives, but also vastly sped up the recovery process.
The aftermath, we've removed 90,000 tons of debris from the streets. 97 or 99% of it has been recycled.
I think the city's major accomplishment has been the fact that we found out how we could pull together and not pull apart. And I think the resilience of the community, the support, the feelings that existed between neighbors and neighborhoods. We became one community overnight.
One year later, life in the Santa Clarita Valley is back to normal. Thousands of homes and buildings have been repaired, as well as most of the roads and highways. New construction is evident throughout the valley as the community continues to grow and prosper. Area business leaders are excited about the increasingly healthy economy and substantial growth in many sectors, including manufacturing and retail. And the city of Santa Clarita continues its progressive march into the new century, while providing its citizens with a wealth of city services, affordable housing, a stable business sector, and one of the nation's lowest crime rates. Santa Clarita, the city for the 21st century. America.